Hi friends, I'm Tammy Kay. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing something that's a little on trend. We are going to make some Christmas ornaments with these little containers. We're going to paint over the lip. We're going to spread out that paint with clear water. And we're going to create these ornaments hanging on pine needles that look like they're highlighted by light. Let's get to this project. It's really fun. Another fun Christmas project for you. All right guys, I'm spraying down my palette. And we are using our Mead products today. I've got actually some Academy paper, which is Mead and Academy. Come from the same company. I've got the waters, separate from my warms and cools. And I'm gonna use what's probably about a number 8 round. These don't have numbers, so I just kind of estimate. All right, so I've got my brush here. I've got a number 4, and then I have a number 2 Princeton Heritage just in case. So what we are doing today, I've outlined where I want my color to go. It's kind of like a frame instead of putting tape down. It's not perfect. That's okay. It can be a little wonky, just a little bit organic and just kind of fun. So I've got these 2 little ceramic things here, and we're going to use this for the shapes of our ornaments. And this kind of trend is all over, so I decided I was going to hop on it and try it out and see how it goes. Using this ceramic cup that's larger, this one that's smaller, just to create a variety of shapes or sizes, should I say, for ornaments. So I'm going to wet my brush. We're going to start with a reddish orange color that's already on here. I'm just going to grab more paint and make it a little bit thicker. And then we're just going to paint on the edge of this, just the lip here, adding in our paint. So, you know, as I always say, we're going for practice. We're not going for perfection at all. So I'm just going to put this down on my paper right about there. Press down, lift up. All right, so I have my first ornament here. And so I'm going to clean my brush. And I just have a cleanish damp brush, and I'm going to dab on my paper towel. I'm just going to start spreading out some of this paint. Oh, I like this. And just let it to start slowly bleed and move around. And you can leave white space too. I'm going to do that. And just see where, you know, these watermarks take you. If you want to start adding in a little bit more color, you can. You can add in a different color of red maybe if you wanted to. Just kind of dabbing, allowing that to spread around. And just play. I always say just play. You have to play, you have to enjoy, and you have to be present for something that is so completely relaxing and joyful. I'm liking how that's looking. I'm going to grab some more concentrated paint too and just darken up some of these edges. But that's basically it. You're just going to, you know, swirl around some of that color, see what happens, let it hang out. So I'm going to grab a clean brush, my blue paint, swirl it around, and paint over here. Put one down here, press down. You know, you don't have to worry about making this circle that sometimes we think, oh, I have to make this perfect circle. Just forget about it. Just enjoy. You've made this incomplete circle. It doesn't matter. And then we're just going to take some of that paint and we're going to spread it around. And we're going to have fun. And look at that. Look at how the paint is starting to move and blooms are forming. Well, they will be drying in a cool way. If you add water back in, it just moves and spreads that paint, and you're going to get some of that bloom, those blooming effects, those cauliflowers that some people just really dread, but yet I think there's so much beauty in them too. So we really have to embrace the things that we consider imperfect and go with it. And that's where I feel we end up making some of our most incredible art. When we are just free, letting go, we're not tense. So take a deep breath if you're feeling tense at all. I'm just adding in more paint. Oops, dipped in the wrong one. That's okay. It's gonna be all right. It's not the end of the world. And spreading things around. If you don't want as much white space as I have here, you can always take some of that away. But I like how it's adding some natural highlights in here, just creating a really pretty look. So now I'm gonna go with the smaller one. We're going with green today, dipping into both greens. which one will I choose? Maybe I just that combo, which would be fun. Just the one more, getting that all painted up. Put that kind of in between everything here. Yeah, just place it. Commit to it. Okay, cleaning the brush. Dabbing the brush. Spreading out the paint, which is such a fun part of all of this, honestly. I'm going ahead and spreading over here. And this one doesn't have a ton of color, so what we can do, just continue to add in some more. Now we're doing this wet on wet, which is really nice in some of the spaces. So just spreading it around. And it's just fun to play. I'm going to do some of that teal as well. Just see how it reacts to the water. So if you want to use, you know, the paint on dry paper, that's fine, but also doing wet on wet creates these amazing blooms and leaves these natural highlights, which I just think are precious. So now we're going to take some brown, just really scrub around in there. We're going to make the tops of these ornaments, little connector pieces that hook onto the string. So I'm going to try to kind of hover here, and we're just going to do kind of a shape such as that. Just a little rectangle, basically, just like so. We'll do one over here, easy peasy, and a smaller one right on here. Okay, I want to start adding in our branches. That's going to start giving us just some context for all the beauty that's happening here. So I've got my kind of sappy green color. I always like to add a little bit of red to that just to tone it down. And I've got my number 4 brush. That's just what we're going to use right now. So I'm going to have a string connected here, obviously here and here. So I want to have a branch that's just coming out from this side, just like that. And I'm holding, you can see, my brush so loosely because I just want my brush strokes to be very loose. So I find myself doing that naturally when, you know, I'm trying to create a piece that is on that looser side. I just want the movement, the natural movement to happen. I don't want to restrict. And when I hold it loosely, I do have less control, so it's going to bob and move all over, but that's okay. I'm good with that. So now we're going to take the brush and do the diagonal brush strokes right here. And I want things to move and shake, so don't be so worried about getting your lines perfect. Don't ever, you know, of course, I'm going to say that. But don't worry about these brush strokes that, you know, perfectly straight or look a certain way. I am using very light pressure, and that way we can just get much thinner brush strokes. Now, if I was really concerned about really thin pine needles, and I'm also not going outside of my little boundary that I made, I could use a thinner brush, and I can even switch over and show you that. But this is the base layer, and there's going to be other layers on top, and so I'm not, you know, I'm just not worried too much about this first part. So now I'm going to grab my turquoisey color here, and we can start adding some brush strokes on top of that as well. And I'm going to actually start using my number 2 round brush and see how that goes. And you just start adding them in on top, filling in those spaces that you've already put with the sap green. And you can look at this as a nice mindfulness practice time just to be present and just focusing on what you're doing. So now it's time to put in our string. Just gonna grab the brown with my number 2 round brush. And a nice concentrated amount of paint that I'm mixing together here. And we can just start adding this one in. Can be a little bit wonky, a little bit shaky. It's attaching it to the branch. This one too. And this one a little bit shorter. I do want to take some more concentrated brown and add it to one side, just for like a little shadow on one side here, as well as there. And I can darken this up just a tad. So now I'm going to dry all this and then we'll add in our background color. All right, for this one, I'm going to use the larger brush that I've been using, and I'm going to just grab some of my cobalt blue, really light, and we're going to just paint in a very simple background here, following the confines of the pencil marks that I put down. And so just as you're marking along here, you can take some water and then try to spread out some of that color. You don't want any harsh lines, so keep working, in the space that you're working at. Don't leave your harsh line and then go somewhere else and work, because you're going to have a hard time in softening up those lines. The other thing to keep in mind is as you're painting around things like this, you don't have a lot of options to paint over it before it starts to spread. So just lightly kind of brushing around and 1, 2, 3 swoops around and move on. Or else you're going to find your paint is going to start to spread into the background, which can be a pretty look as well. But if you want to avoid that, that would be my tip to do that. Okay, now that everything is painted, and you can take some more concentrated paint and you can just start adding it in maybe around the bottom of where these ornaments are. This is kind of like some shadow, just for fun. Or on the sides, wherever you see fit, just to create some differences in the color, in the lightness, the darkness of the different areas. And you can also add more water in to push paint around, which will create some nice texture. You can even sprinkle some salt in the background if you'd like, which would make a lot of beautiful textures in this painting. Here I have some Himalayan salt. Just use whatever salt you have, and you can just sprinkle it in, allow that to dry. The salt is going to absorb a lot of the liquid and leave behind some cool marks. I just want to add a little bit of this concentrated paint to this. I would say this is like a cream consistency where there's enough water that I can move that paint around. I'm just going to make a few little marks here and there. All right, just a little bit extra. And I can spread some around with a damp, clean brush too. Some of that, just a little bit. Just a little extra. And then over here, a little bit of that teal color, turquoise, whatever you want to call it. Just a little bit of extra markings. And we're going to use this cobalt blue too. Just to darken it up, give it a little extra personality, a little extra pizzazz. Never hurt anyone. And then once the salt is dry, you scrape it off and your composition is complete. All right, friends, I hope you enjoyed painting our ornaments today. I certainly did. Always remind yourself that we are trying to play, enjoy the process, and experience art like we never have before.